Alright, I guess we're doing gacha games now. Look, I don't have anything against gacha games in the first place. Though, I have never really played one more than a few days. The longest gaming streak for me was in Honkai Star Rail, because it was actually not a bad game with turn-based RPG system and a decent story. Though, when it comes down to endgame grind, that's where I lose interest fast. Just a few days of doing dailies and spending literally 1 to 2 hours on everyday routine is enough for me to just abandon the game, never to open it again. And yeah, the gachas are free to play, and it means you will be embezzled by every aspect of the game to pay money. Do you want more energy? Pay money. Do you want to level up your character faster? Pay money. Do you want more money? Pay money. Because in-game currency will always become scarce at some point, as well as resources. And of course, the game will bait you with these cool as hell characters. Each one is better than the previous one, catering to your fetishes and desires you never knew you had. And to be honest, I am pretty surprised people are confessing actually they've spent like $200-300 to pull a new character. I don't judge them, but I did pull Caesar in like 30 pulls. Just saying. So here's the deal. I originally planned to run a little experiment and see if I could actually platinum and 100% a game like this. In my mind, that sounded insane, because gacha games tend to have trophy lists designed by evil masterminds. And I was actually prepared for some nightmare like spend 10 grand to unlock all characters or log in daily for the next 5 years. But surprise surprise, the trophy list of Zenless Zone Zero actually looked quite normal. Like no second mortgage needed, you know? So maybe it won't be that bad. Oh, and before we go any further, what's up my trophy-hungry goblins? It's your boy Flair, and I'm here to guide you through this colorful grindfest of boobs, butts, and flashy combat that is Zenless Zone Zero. So, let's get weird. Alright, so the story is actually not that bad. To be honest, I wasn't super keen on reading and involving myself with the story and characters because, you know, who the hell follows the story in the gacha game, right? But actually the more I played, the more involved I became. The game actually does a nice job with keeping your attention up. Plot points are given in 3 forms: through special events, basically like a dialogue scene that is fully voiced, a comic strip, which is also kind of like a cutscene that would usually show flashbacks or events happening without the presence of main characters, and finally we also have a full-on animated cutscene. And I have to say, the animated cutscenes are kinda awesome. The animations are super smooth, the fighting scenes are usually amazing, it can be a bit chaotic at times, and the character animations remind me of these weird people on TikTok that act like they are in an anime or a Pixar cartoon, though this time because it's actually an animation it does not feel irritating. I would say cute even. Oh shit, did I actually get charmed by the game? What in the 1000-year voyage guided by compassion Michaela bullshit is this?
Lord of the Old Order, let us gun together. I promise you, a tail job by a rat girl.
Anyway, the story. We play as either Wise or Belle, 2 siblings working as proxies in the city of New Eridu. New Eridu is a futuristic city plagued by so-called halos, which are anomalous zones that look like a giant purple dome. Inside, people turn into ethereals influenced by the ether, a special magic energy that can be found only inside the halos. And of course, not all people turn into ethereals, only NPCs. And of course, ether is mined by different factions for a variety of reasons, but the main one is that it is used as fuel and catalyst for different high-tech shenanigans. So surely halos are a sweet piece of cake and everyone is attracted to them. Bandits, government, mercenaries, you name it. And that's where proxies come in. So you see, Belle and Vice are also known as Phaeton, and they possess this rare tech which allows them to map out halos and also control a Bang Boo, a cute rabbit-like robot, to help navigate halos more safely. So through the course of the story we will be helping different people and different main characters to achieve their goals inside the halos, because we are the only ones who can navigate them and help people get in and get out. Overall, currently there's a prologue plus 4 chapters to the game. Each chapter introduces a new faction of characters, and we as Phaeton help them with their problems by using our proxy powers. It also advances a general plot bit by bit, albeit it was quite slow so far. I think the real major advancement was shown only in the latest chapter. Finally, overall, the game has a very cool aesthetic. It has this interesting retro-futuristic vibe. It is also actually explained in the game that the modern technology is prone for being corrupted by ether, so a lot of people are naturally reverted to the use of old tech like flip phones for communication and vinyl for music. Hell, main characters even own a video store that rents VHS tapes. And I don't know why, but it blends in so good in the overall cyberpunkish atmosphere that I love it. So yeah, story and visual wise, the game is an eye candy. So let's see what it can offer on a gameplay side. Oh boy, where do I even begin with this one? So, Zenless Zone Zero is an action RPG at its core. You recruit a squad of different agents to slap some ethereal ass around in the hollow zones, and these agents are split into different types based on their attributes, which is basically elements, and also a specialty role, like DPS, tanks, stunners, support for buffs, anomalies for debuffing and stuff like that. And the attributes are split into physical, fire, ice, electricity, and of course ether. And of course it's nothing new with mihoyo games, but every agent is basically a combo of an attribute and a role. So you can have like a fire defense character like Ban, or an ice attack agent like Alan, and so on and so forth. And of course, if you want to further synergize your agents, basically you can match them by the faction, because every character belongs to a faction, and matching agents from the same faction on one team gives you extra bonuses. And of course, every agent comes with their own set of skills, usually revolving around some gimmick that you'll have to master if you want to play them really well. The combat itself is pretty straightforward. All you really need to do is smack the enemy around and counterattack at the right time to trigger a so-called chain attack. It's a sweet flashy move that swap in your next character to keep the combo going. Does it get repetitive? Sure, but the combat is actually quite satisfying, so even on your 100th mission it's still quite good, you don't really get tired of it. It's easy to pick up and master, which works both for and against it. You might get bored, but it's so smooth you won't stop. And of course it wouldn't be a gacha game without leveling, and trust me, there are layers upon layers to this. But we'll save that for later when we get into the achievements, because there are achievements that will have you optimize your agents to the moon and back, so we'll talk about it then. And now let's talk about one of the more divisive feature of the game, the TV world. It's essentially a top-down dungeon crawl that represents your journey through the hollows. You move through the maze, interact with tiles that might give you items, start a combat, heal your party, you know, the usual things. There's also the pressure system that cranks up the difficulty, and every time the pressure meter fills, your party gets hit with a debuff that makes things a bit more complicated. And yeah, a lot of people hated it. They said it was too slow, and honestly, I get it. The story missions tied to the TV world were a slog. You couldn't skip any of the dialogues, and speeding through it wasn't an option either. But in defense of the TV world, there were moments of creativity. Each chapter introduced a new gimmick, like the ghosts and light bulbs in chapter 3, and some of the puzzles were actually kind of fun. Not hard, mind you, but enough to make you pause for a couple of seconds and think. And that's already a good thing if you're playing a gacha game. And TV World actually really shines in Hollow Zero, which is a special mode where you explore a randomly generated dungeon, collecting buffs, cash and items while working your way toward the final boss. The randomness keeps things fresh, and I generally hope mihoyo doesn't scrap it entirely, because during the last couple of patches they said that people were complaining so much they will basically reduce TV World to a minimum. But in the end it actually adds a little something unique that sets Triple Z apart from Honkai or Genshin. And at the same time I have to mention that after the latest patch, the TV World has been buggy as hell. Tiles keep glitching out, and longer missions in chapter 4 have become a bit of a pain. So Here's hoping they get that sorted soon. Oh, and aside from combat, there are about a million minigames you can waste your time on. I won't go into all of them, but shout out to the Vampire Survivor-esque minigame that absolutely devoured my free time. Seriously, it's like a game within a game, and I didn't even manage to unlock all the characters and special companions. So yeah, anyway, enough talk. It's time to buckle up and start the grind for the Platinum Trophy. So let's see where this gacha roller coaster takes us. Alright, so at the start of the game we're hit with a couple of cutscenes and bam, we meet the first set of free-to-play agents, also known as the Cunning Hares. Our dream team consists of Nicole, Anby and Billy. These three are mercenaries who naturally get themselves in a bit of a hot water while on a commission inside a hollow. To save their sorry butts, they reach out to Wise and Belle, and this is where we step in. I chose Wise because, I don't know, why not? But if Belle changes anything plot-wise, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm really curious if it actually matters or it's just a cosmetic choice. After a couple of tutorial battles, we nab our first achievement, Land of Risk and Reward. Then we get introduced to the open world, quotes heavily intended, specifically the 6th Street location, which is basically the hub where most of the shops and our home base are chilling. And for exploring the 6th Street we also unlock Let's Get Down to Business achievement. Finally, we get a call from Fairy, a high-end AI, who slides into our DMs and signs a contract with us. And for that we also get Hello Master achievement and the prelude has ended. With the prelude chapter out of the way, it's time to dive into chapter 1. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, let me break down how the game look is going to look like from here on out. Every chapter will introduce a new faction of characters and weave their stories into the main plot. Once you wrap up the main story bits, you're thrown into the chapter intermission, aka free roam and side quest central, which is where you can run around the town, take on side quests, grind for XP and level up your agents to your heart's content. And of course, there are more achievements to scoop up while you're at it. So chapter 1 kicks off with us reconnecting with the Cunning Hares and meet their new buddy, Nekomata, because no gacha game is complete without at least one cat girl. We're also introduced to the villains of this chapter, the Red Hand Gang and the Vision, but honestly they're pretty forgettable. Think of them as your typical tutorial level baddies who exist solely to get smacked down by the protagonists. And after a few missions and cutscenes, Vision hijacks a train, and because this game loves its over-the-top drama, they fill it with explosives. Naturally, being the heroes we are, we hijack the hijacked train and steer it into the hollow to save everyone on board. And around this time I also managed to get my first character and their V-engine to level 20, and this netted me the Rookie on the Road and Toy Builder Extraordinaire achievements. And after putting the smackdown on Vision, the chapter wraps up with Nekomata officially joining the Cunning Hares. And we get a nice little dinner celebration. And of course for that we also get happy and full except for my wallet achievement.
This isn't interesting.
Nice. And in the intermission after chapter 1, I decided it was time to grind out all the side missions I could find in every location. And in no time I hit 50 observation data. Those shiny orbs you can either find hidden in the TV world, sometimes they are sneakily tucked away, and sometimes there are rewards for level progression, or by completing combat challenges, usually by clearing missions under 2 minutes and making sure none of your agents bite the dust. At this stage the game's difficulty is still pretty low, so hitting that 50 data mark wasn't too much of a grind. We also get introduced to Hollow Zero, which is basically a series of increasingly difficult dungeons inside the biggest hollow area in the world. The further you go, the harder it gets, of course, and each section of Hollow Zero has its own little gimmick, but the main takeaway is that you collect Resonium, special cards that give buffs to your team. There are tons of them, usually focusing on boosting a specific aspect of your teams like elemental damage, defense or crits. So it's essential to understand what works best for your setup. And if you collect 4 to to 5 Resonium cards of the same type, they will also combine to grant an additional effect. So it's always a good idea to stack them if you can. Then there's also a pressure system, which I've mentioned before. Every time your pressure rank goes up, you get slapped with a permanent debuff, like longer cooldowns on your dash or reduced energy generation. You can sometimes heal your pressure levels, but it's generally wise to keep that pressure as low as possible, because at level 5 the final pressure debuff will be always about Hollow Zero boss, and usually it will give it like a 50% damage boost. So trust me, you don't want to give those bosses any extra advantages, especially in the end game. So anyway, after slogging through our first Hollow Zero expedition, we snagged the Outsourced Investigator achievement. We're also introduced to agent stories, special side quests that you can start anytime by interacting with a VHS shelf in the HQ. These stories give you a deeper dive into a specific agent's backstory and character. First one I unlocked was for Soldier 11, a fire sword wielding tsundere from the Obol squad, the faction that hasn't even made its debut in the game yet. Agent stories are generally short, split into 3 parts, and involve a quick romp through a TV world or a few fights. You even get the chance to play as the featured agent, even if you haven't unlocked them yet, so it's a good opportunity to try them out. And after completing the agent story, we also get a Playing Myself achievement. We also go through a quick family mission, which is a cute little intermission story about Belle and Vice. It's short, sweet, and after completing it we get the family achievement, which officially kicks us off into chapter 2. And in chapter 2 we meet the crew from Belobog Heavy Industries, a construction company that handles dangerous repairs and projects deep inside the hollows. You know, the kind of stuff no sane person would ever touch. First up is Koleda, a loli who is also a CEO of the company, and I would call her an obligatory loli with a big weapon, but her weapon is not that big, and we have another character who fits that description. Along with her we meet 3 of her finest employees: Ben, a giant bear who is inexplicably also an accountant, Anton, an engineer who looks like he'd fit right into the Yakuza gang, and Grace, a female version of Doc Brown with even less regard to safety. So basically our job here is to wrangle 3 rogue heavy industry machines that, thanks to Grace's new tech, have apparently developed some form of advanced sentience, and we have to catch them, and also unfold the mystery behind Koleda's father's, like the previous CEO, disappearance. So the first machine we find is actually in love with a building. I'll just let this sink in. I don't have any jokes about it. So just you know, let's give this a moment.
グレース、おい、落ち着け。だが、真白くんとは白いもんだ。まさかあの作りかけのビルか？作りかけですって。私、真白くんと一生添い遂げるの。だから今だ、取り消しなさいよ。
So eventually we capture this lovesick hunk of metal and unlock the Concrete Romeo and Metal Juliet achievement. The second machine is actually connected to Anton, and it basically goes something like this.
You just drop in and just smack the lip, whoop-ah, drop down, snap, ah, and then after that...
The last machine takes you on a wild goose chase all over the hollow before you finally corner it and call it a day. And for that we also get Enlightened Sinner. So in the end, it turns out that Koleda's dad didn't actually run off with the money of the company, as it was previously stated, and he actually perished while saving the city and the company. Classic. And to make things even more dramatic, the last machine we encounter is a prototype that gets infected by the ethereal. So cue the epic two-phase boss fight where you dodge lasers and general chaos. When it's finally over, we earn Call Out That Name achievement and can pat ourselves on the back for surviving. And honestly, this chapter was a lot of fun. It's got anime episode vibes, you know, plenty of action, and the final boss fight was a very refreshing change of pace. So here's hoping this game keeps this kind of energy up. And here we are, in the intermission between chapter 2 and 3. We get an invitation to 6th Street hot new shop, Bardic Needle, and here, instead of your typical swords, shields and flashy armor, you can buy music discs.
үміт түбітті түбітті бітті. 10 бөгелекке 10 көбелек келіп қонды. 10 бөгелек 10 бөлек, 10 көбелек 10 бөлек кетті. Абат абдырағыш па, абақ абдырағыш па, абат абдырағыштау.
And this is basically your equipment for the characters. So basically discs work the same way as all of the equipment in Hoyo games. You can slap in 2 or 4 of the same disc type and you get your set bonus effects. The ideal setup is 4 discs of one type to trigger 2 and 4 piece bonuses, and then you can get 2 more discs of another type for an extra bonus. Oh, and of course you can level up your discs, which gives you a random additional stat, so min-maxers are always complaining that, you know, you have to rebuy the same discs in order to level them up and hope for necessary stat for your particular character to wind up. Personally, I didn't even bother with all that. I just put the necessary discs on the character and tried to get them to like maximum level, and I didn't even care like which stat they give. They generally just make your character stronger, so that it was enough for me, almost until the end of the game. And after a quick tutorial with the discs, we also unlock Shoppa the Explorer for unlocking all the shops. And in the meantime, I also got 100 observation data, so we also get an achievement for that. I also get my first agent and double engine to level 40, so we also get New Game Plus and Avid Collector achievements. Oh, and let's not forget the side quests involving Zhu Yuan and Qing Yi, the dynamic duo of police officers. We help them catch some EMP-wielding criminal, and for that we also get 3 more achievements. The Crisis on the 6th Street, There is Only One Truth, and Return to Rightful Owner. So next up we get the achievement for unlocking the 2nd floor of Random Play, except it's actually like it's always unlocked, and I think what achievement means is, you know, basically to gain access to your siblings' room, which is kind of creepy, but you know, it's for the achievement, so we have to do this. And wow, that just made it worse. Finally, I blast through most of the side missions and also collect 200 observation data for the Detective New Eridu achievement. And at last, we're ready to head into Chapter 3, the grand finale of the base game. Alright, buckle up, because chapter 3 is where things get really wild. First of all, we get introduced to the fine folks over at Victoria Housekeeping. And now, when they say housekeeping, they don't just mean scrubbing floors, they also specialize in cleaning out ethereals in the hollows. And leading this quirky squad is Lycan, the head honcho and a hot wolf guy for a minute. Seriously, just look at him. I'm pretty sure furries everywhere are just like collectively losing their minds over this dude. You can almost hear the howling.
Gary, quit it. You're gonna start a howl.
I didn't start it.
Yeah. We also have Coring, who is, and now it's for real, is obligatory lolly with a giant weapon.
A laboratory lolly with a giant weapon, spinning tales of a fierce little legend. She defies every single expectation. A laboratory lolly with a giant weapon.
In that case, a pizza cutter, which may or may not be a Bloodborne reference. It is in my headcanon. We also have Rena, who I didn't manage to pull, so yeah, she's just there. 2 dolls, whatever. And last but not least, we have Ellen, an S-tier ice damage dealer and a shark girl tsundere. Oh, and she's in high school. And that's a bit of a red flag for me, but hey, she kicks serious butt. She's also like probably the strongest damage dealer in the game. And I managed to pull her off on my very first 50-50. So what's not to like? So we dive into the first few missions with Victoria Housekeeping that involves investigating the Ballet Twins, like the 2 skyscrapers that are locked inside the hollow. And before you know it, we unlock a professional team at your service. And actually after that, I took a quick break from the main story to clean up some side agent stories that got unlocked back in chapter 2. So we grab an adept student requires a brilliant teacher for the Nekomata story. Iron Witch for Grace's arc, and then I Wish Us for Coletta. And the rest of the chapter 3 actually went pretty fast. We restore the power for Ballet Twins and get Generate Power with Power achievement. And we finally clash with the last boss of the chapter, which is, well, Ballet Twins. And yeah, they're exactly what you'd expect, two ballerinas. And honestly, this is the first time in the game I felt like the enemies actually dealt some damage. Up until now, it's been smooth sailing. I hadn't lost an agent or even a mission. I haven't died like once in like, I don't know, maybe 30-40 hours by that time. Because to be honest, the game's difficulty had all the complexity of a cookie clicker. Just mash buttons and watch number go up. But these ballerinas actually made me adapt. I had to dodge, like actually dodge, and even, wait for it, think. Mind-blowing stuff. And don't get me wrong, it's still not super tough, especially after a few tries, but at least this fight had some kind of a gimmick instead of just being the usual bigger, better version of enemies we've already stomped. At the same time, to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the whole kill them at the same time or they'll revive each other shtick, but hey, points for trying game, I'll give you that. And after wrapping up the chapter, we walk away with Extreme Operation and Melody of Fate from the chapter's epilogue. Alright, so at the time I was recording this, Chapter 3 Intermission was your official endgame. And basically there's like a couple of side missions left and the never-ending grind for XP. Because get this, by the time Chapter 3 wrapped up, I was around level 36. And you need to get one agent and one double engine to level 60. But before that, you gotta hit level 50 on your proxy account. So yeah, there's like 14 levels to gain. And there's basically nothing else to do in the game except for the resource grind. First off, I knocked out 2 new agent stories for Lycan and Rena, earning 2 more achievements. Nice and easy. And not long after, I also finished up all the proxy primers, and these are basically just challenges of your game progression. So they're not really a big deal. You'll naturally do them as you level up your team. So also easy peasy. And I also unlocked a great manager for getting the shop to level 6. And again, this just happens automatically if you remember to open the shop once a day and help some NPCs pick out the right VHS tapes. Which, let's be honest, it's not exactly rocket science. They basically just tell you which VHS tape they need, so you just need to pick the right one. And then came the grind. And when I say grind, I mean grind. It took me a solid 2 weeks of non-stop level grinding to hit level 50. But before I could wrap that up, I had to also complete Hollow Zero. And here's the deal. Every chapter unlocks a new section of Hollow Zero, each with its own layers. You gotta work through all the layers, eventually hitting the core layer, where the most difficult version of this chapter's boss hangs out. You'll earn one who gazes into the abyss the first time you beat the core difficulty. But when you clear every single section, you also unlock the Withering Garden, aka endgame secret dungeon. In the Withering Garden, there's a unique boss, Nineveh, who decides to ruin my perfect record. And this was the first time in the entire game that I actually died. Like, legit could not beat the boss on my first try. I managed to do this on my second attempt, but wow, because Nineveh got some seriously annoying attacks, summons minions like it's a Despicable Me movie, hits like a truck, and has an HP pool the size of a small country. It was basically a battle of attrition, just try not to get smacked too much. And when I finally beat it, I had Lycan and Sokaku down for the count, with Ellen hanging on by the thread. So it was like closest call of the game, no question. And after beating Nineveh, I think it was maybe another week of grinding before I hit proxy level 50. And of course, after getting that, I immediately leveled up Ellen and her double engine to level 60 for a nice double achievement bonus. Nice. So finally we just have a few miscellaneous achievements left before we get the platinum, so let's talk about Inky. So you see, you can call your agents on dates to boost your relationships with them, which is fine, easy enough. You can call them up once a day, maybe bump into them randomly at any location, and if you know the right dialogue answers, you can max out most characters in maybe a week or 2. But then there's Inky. Inky is a stray cat on 6th Street who only shows up at night, and based on her meows, you have to figure out whether to feed her or give her a pet. Sounds easy, but here's why it sucks. First of all, it's slow as hell. Sometimes the game says, oh, you get the significant increase in the relationships. But when I look at the relationship meter with Inky, I swear it doesn't move. Second is that I always forget to check for Inky at night. So I probably missed like 50% of my chances to interact with her. And finally is that the time skipping mechanic in the game is a pain in the ass. There are 4 time slots: morning, afternoon, evening and night. You can skip one manually per day, but to progress naturally you have to complete a mission or a story event. So if you're grinding Inky, it's a whole ordeal of doing 2 missions, skipping ones and hoping she shows up. And sometimes she doesn't even appear. Her spawn points are random and it's, just a mess. Sometimes I just can't find her. So honestly, this trophy just sucks. But the good thing is that after some patches, Hoyo actually fixed the time skip mechanic and now you can freely jump to any time slot. So when I came back to the game after maybe a month of absence, I realized I could skip to nighttime whenever I wanted and actually maxed out Inky in like 20 minutes. So yeah, good times. And for those of you who did this the old-fashioned, hardcore way, I salute you and I grieve for your sanity. And finally, there are 2 secret missions left. And these are secret because the game gives you 0 indication they exist. You just have to talk to random NPCs and sometimes guess the right dialogue choices. And to be honest, this is the one time I looked up how to do an achievement for this game on the internet. On the internet? Who the fuck says on the internet these days? And I'm glad I did, because I wasn't about to spend another 2 weeks grinding past level 50, because I was thinking that these missions will automatically appear when I'm like level 50, but when I got level 50 they didn't appear, so I thought like maybe I should be level 51. But I'm glad I did look them up, because grinding from level 50 to 51 is like would have taken me maybe a couple of more weeks. So the first mission, Bamboo Limbo, has you navigating a labyrinth in a TV world to save a guy and his bamboo. But here's the catch. You can't make a single mistake. One wrong tile, literally, and either the bamboo or both the bamboo and the guy die. But if you get it right, you save the day. And it took me a couple of tries. Like basically the first time you do this mission, you can just map out the correct teleportation tiles that gets you through the whole mission. And on your second try, just do it perfectly. So just need a little bit of preparation. And the second secret mission is probably the coolest one in the game. And I have no idea why they went out of their way to hide it. So basically you play as your bamboo, no agents, no battles, just you leveling up, getting gear and doing quests to take down the final boss. There are 7 sins and 7 virtues, like NPC bamboos, that you either help or defeat them. And to get the achievement, you actually need to get both sins and virtues on your side and defeat the final boss. And it's actually like, it's generally fun take on the TV world. Just go around, kind of, like it's basically like a simulation of a JRPG kind of stuff. So I liked it. The only thing it actually takes like maybe a couple of hours to finish, actually, if you want to do everything, and you have to also level up because the final boss is pretty powerful. But yeah, I mean, like if they had more missions like this in the TV world, I would definitely play it. And once we wrap up these missions, we also snag final director's cut and at long last the platinum trophy. Welcome to New Eridu. And of course, while I was playing the game, grinding, I also took a break a couple of times from this game. Chapter 4 dropped, and naturally, I couldn't just let that sit without tackling 100% completion. So here we go again. So right off the bat, I snagged 2 achievements. and Fading to Black. And both of those are for completing Jane Doe mini chapter. And this story event actually came out before chapter 4, and I already completed it while grinding XP for level 50, but for some reason they retroactively added these achievements in the chapter 4 folder. So, I mean, I'm not complaining. It's like 2 achievements handed to me just for loading the game, so okay. Alright, so now on to chapter 4. So we are introduced to Sons of Caledon, a biker gang that operates outside of New Eridu in the Outer Rim. And we already know Lucy and Piper because they've been added to the game since day 1.
A laboratory lonely with a giant weapon.
But now we also meet a few new faces. Caesar, the leader and your classical physical tank, Bernice, the pyromaniac with 2 flamethrowers, because awesome, and Lighter, a guy, and probably his sole purpose is to justify why this biker gang of girls is called Sons of Caledon. Anyway, the Sons are gearing up for their annual Tour de Inferno, a brutal biker competition that grants control over the gasoline routes and essentially dominion over the Outer Rim. So think Mad Max but with more pretty girls. Oh wait, we already have that. Think about Mad Max but anime. Shit, we have this one as well. Okay, think about Mad Max but it's an anime with pretty girls. Yeah, that sounds about right. So our mission is to help Caesar with the tour, but of course the rival gang is constantly breathing down our necks. And it all culminates in a fight against Pompey, the leader of the Vanquishers. And let me tell you, this was hands down the best chapter so far. Great characters, a change of pace with Outer Rim setting, and Pompey, well, he's legitimately one of the coolest bosses I've faced in this game. So finally Caesar wins the tour, becomes the new Wasteland Overlord, and we score a Hero is Born achievement. Nice. And next I got sucked into a bizarre yet oddly fun minigame where you help re-establish Cheesetopia, a restaurant run by the Sons of Caledon. Basically, you balance your customers' orders between heartiness and healthiness, trying to keep everyone satisfied. It's not too hard, and the best part is you don't need to burn energy or wait for the new content to unlock. You can just do all that event in like one day. And after flawlessly completing all the missions, Cheesetopia reaches max level and I snag a 6-star rating achievement. Then I also tackled 20 investigator training courses, unlocking part-time investigator. This new mechanic lets you complete fighting challenges and then assign agents to passive XP slots. And it's actually a godsend for leveling up characters you plan to use later, specifically because EXP chips were the only option to level up anyone before. But of course, no endgame would be complete without another trip back to Hollow Zero. And this time they've added the Seedbed layer of the Withering Garden, which you can grind infinitely while stacking difficulty modifiers. And here's the kicker, the Seedling Raised Wrong achievement requires you to complete the seedbed with other activity at level 6, meaning you need to pile on 6 modifiers. And if you think how bad can it be, well, it's bad, like it's really bad. I actually had to go back and optimize my discs for the first time ever. I did some extra grinding, leveled up skills for the main characters, the whole, shebang. And even with all that effort, I barely managed to scrape through the fight against Nineveh on Ether 6. So yeah, it's no joke. And I can't even imagine what hell lies beyond with more modifiers. Whoever out there grinding like Ether 10 or higher, I just don't know how you guys do this. And finally, the last achievement of the DLC was Bernice's Agent Story. And it was the last one because, well, they didn't add it until October 16th. So, of course, I had to go back and do it specifically, which was mildly annoying. But the Agent Story itself was quite fun. It's basically like a Simpsons episode, because like basically everybody get rich super fast in this story and waste all the money and everybody come back to their normal lives in the end. So yeah, quite fun. And with the Bernice's story complete, I finally hit 100% completion rate in Zenless Zone Zero. That is, until the next DLC inevitably drops and drags me back in. Whew, And wow, I have to admit, when I first booted up Zenless Zone Zero, I wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much as I did, because the gameplay is actually pretty slick, graphics are juicy, and the story, surprisingly, not a dumpster fire. And I ended up sinking 100 hours into this game, more than Persona 3, 4 or even Reload, and those topped out at around maybe 70 hours each. And the wildest part, I'm actually excited for new chapters, looking forward to these goofy little minigames, and if I had an ounce of self-control, I would be even saving for Miyabi when she eventually drops. So yeah, let's talk scores. So I'm giving Zenless Zone Zero a 5 out of 10 for story, because it's fun but it's not like groundbreaking. A 6 out of 10 for replayability, because I'm definitely gonna go back at some point to play through the new chapters. Another 6 out of 10 for enjoyment, because it's pretty good. And a solid 5 out of 10 for trophy design. And overall that brings us to 5.5 out of 10, which actually ranks a 0.5 higher than Odin Sphere. Yeah, imagine that. And you know what? I 100% buy a full-length game with these characters, this plot and these aesthetics. Because, you know, I think it would be a great idea to have a game like, you know, Dynasty Warriors or Samurai Warriors in this aesthetic with these characters. I'd buy the shit out of this and I would definitely play a lot. But you know what? Maybe having a game you can come back to whenever isn't so bad. Oh, and I forgot to mention that this game has a kick-ass soundtrack. There's basically like trap, EDM, dubstep during fights, and it's absolutely awesome. So yeah, give it a try, and it's probably one of the best soundtracks of 2024 of any game. Oh, and let's not forget, it's free. Well, mostly free. I did drop like $10 on a booster pack, but for 100 hours of entertainment, I think it's a solid investment. Anyway, thanks for sticking around and watching. If this video hits at least 1,000 views, you bet I'll crank out more episodes when the new DLCs roll in. And if it reaches something like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10,000 views, well, buckle up, because I'll be diving headfirst into Honkai Star Rail as well. And I promise you'll see me suffer, because Honkai Star Rail already has like a shit ton of DLCs, and you also cannot really skip dialogues there, so okay. So smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's make it happen. I'll see you all on the next Platinum journey real soon. Cheers.
Road to play.